giant is creating fear for you today. We are all probably familiar with the story of David and Goliath. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 17 in the Old Testament. Goliath was a giant. He was a Philistine who were some of the people who fought Israel and really gave them a rough time. He was over 9 feet tall. His armor weighed anywhere from 125 to 150 pounds. And he had come out and declared that he wanted one man from Israel to come fight him. And that man should have been the king. It should have been King Saul, who was head and shoulders above all the rest of the men. But all of Israel were greatly afraid, the Bible tells us. And they were greatly afraid of Goliath, because whoever lost this battle, their whole country would be slaves to the other country. So if Israel lost this battle, they would enslave themselves to the Philistines. David showed up. Now, David was not in the battle. David was a teenager who was taking care of his father's sheep, and his father sent him to the front lines of the battle to find out what's going on, because he couldn't turn on Fox News and find out. And so he sent some food, and he sent David to see how his brothers were doing and what was going on. And when David showed up, he heard and found out what was going on. And David was interested. Why wasn't David afraid? You see, Saul didn't realize that Goliath was defying God, but David did. Saul was having some spiritual problems already, because in chapter 15, he had already committed sin, and God had already said he was removing him from being a king, and had already had Samuel anoint David as king. Of course, Saul didn't know that. And there comes David showing up, this teenager ready to fight a giant that no other man is willing to fight. Fear is the thermostat that measures our proximity to God. David was tight with God. David had a good relationship with God, unlike Saul. David regarded Goliath as an uncircumcised Philistine who was not under God's covenant. But Saul warned David, "You're not able to fight this Philistine because you're a youth, and he's been a man of war since his youth." But David said to Saul, and he tells Saul that he used to keep his father's sheep, and a lion or bear would come and attack and get the sheep, and that he would fight him, and he would take the lamb out of the mouth and deliver the lamb from the lion or the bear. And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." David was confident that he could beat Goliath. Why? Why wasn't David afraid? Because the closer we are to God, the further we are from fear. My friend, that is tooltip number 3. And you need to do it starting today and for the rest of your life. And I will say our lives. We need to stay closer to God, because when we are closer to him, we are not as fearful. Who do you think you are more like, David or Saul? We need to aim to be like David. And of course, we know how the story ends. David picks up 5 stones, has a slingshot, takes 1 stone and slings it into Goliath's forehead, and he kills him. God guided that stone right into the head of the giant and killed him. And we know that David became king too. But what we want to look at here is the difference between the way Saul and David felt about Goliath. If we want David's confidence, we've got to draw close to God. It's like Jesus says in John 15, I am the vine and you are the branches, and apart from me, you can do nothing. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But we have to spend time every day developing a relationship with God, a relationship with Jesus, a relationship with the Holy Spirit. And we have to do that through prayer and Bible study and just spending that time meditating on a verse, being with the Lord. I'm not saying you will never have a fear. I'm not saying David never had a fear. I'm sure when he was on the run from Saul and he was on the run from his son Absalom after this, he had fears. And there was a time in David's life where he did uh, get further away from God and into sin. We're not perfect. But friend, if you want to face your fear, this is how we do it. Spend time with God starting today, more time. The more the battle of fear engages us, the more we need to be engaged in prayer and Bible study with the Lord, communion with God. That is what we aim for. So thank you for watching. And as always, these tips come from Faith That Walks on Water. The link to my book is in the description. And the link to this playlist for the other tool tips are in the description too. Please, as always, subscribe, like, comment. It tells YouTube that this is where somebody else watching it. See you next week.